Welcome to the Integrity Sports Podcast, covering local sports in the Southwest Georgia area, creating content that is factual, positive, and informative, promoting efforts by athletes, coaches, and sports administrators. Now, here's your host, Tim Estes.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Integrity Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Estes, and we hope that you will make the Integrity Sports Podcast a part of your weekly routine as we discuss topics in the Southwest Georgia area that are related to sports. Since this is our first episode, I feel like we need to explain a little bit about the vision and the hopes of this podcast. You know, we're in an environment where most folks don't pick up a newspaper and read about yesterday's games, and they don't look for what game is scheduled tomorrow. And because of that, you don't read much about the human interest stories that used to spin out of those game coverages. You don't learn much about the coaches or the players or maybe those folks behind the scenes that bring value to their programs. And in a world of instant news, a growing number of people these days are turning to the internet and specifically to podcasts to hear those personal stories. Our vision for the Integrity Sports Podcast is, number one, we want it to be factual. We're not going to deal in innuendos or rumors or anything like that. We want to talk facts. Number two, we want it to be positive. There's enough bad news out there, and we've got enough good news that we can spread, and that's definitely what we want to do. And finally, we want it to be informative. We want, when you log off after watching one of our episodes, to have gotten to know the people and the programs that those people represent. So we welcome you into today's broadcast, and we're fortunate to have two of my friends here in the Southwest Georgia area. These two men have helped to elevate the game of women's college basketball to never before seen heights in our area. First, we have Coach James Frey. He's the head coach of the South Georgia Technical College Lady Jets. Coach Frey, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. Excited about it.
And also Coach Justin Payne. Justin is the head coach of the Georgia Southwestern State University Lady Hurricanes. Coach Payne, glad to have you.
Hey, thanks, Tim. Happy to be here as well.
Guys, you know, one of the things I got to thinking about today, when I deal with a lot of kids in my job, and a lot of times you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I can't think of one time I've heard a kid say, I want to be a women's college basketball coach. So, Coach Frey, we're going to start with you. Prior to coming to Americus, prior to coming to South Georgia Tech, tell us what you did and how you got into the women's side of the game.
Well, it's, I was forever, it seemed like, from once I got out of college until 11 years ago, I was an assistant coach at the College of Coastal Georgia over in Brunswick. For 22 years, I was a men's assistant. And then for a year, we started the women's program at Coastal Georgia. And Betsy Harris was our head coach. And it was kind of in the midst of trying to find an assistant for her and some other stuff going on. And it got late in the process. And she asked me if I'd be interested in coaching both. And I told her if, the schedule worked out and I was able to, I would be glad to. But I needed to get it approved from my head coach and our AD, who was Gerald Cox at the time. And he was fine with it. And so I delved into coaching women's basketball. And it was so drastically different than coaching men. From a basketball standpoint, it wasn't. 94 feet, put the little orange thing through the little metal thing. That doesn't change. But to me, after a long time of coaching men, young ladies' will to learn and their ability to focus and not – I always give this for instance. You take the 13th player on a men's team. You can't convince that joker he's not going to the NBA.
Right.
Like, coach held him back, somebody held him back, but he should be in the league. You take our young ladies and give them a good college experience where they learn more about the game and can grow and become better players and get their degrees, it's a whole different world. And so I just found the ladies to be far more coachable than the guys. I love coaching men. It was a a phenomenal part of my life, one I will never forget. But I would never trade what I do right now to coach any men's team in the country. It's amazing how much of a joy it is to watch these young ladies grow, develop, and then move on to bigger and better things.
Now, is it true that you learned about this job on the golf course?
I did. Well, yeah, I was playing with my boss, and I were playing golf one afternoon, and Stephen Wright, who was the AD at the time, called me, and he said, "Are you interested in our women's job?" I said, "You got a women's coach." You know, I didn't know Brandon was leaving, Brandon Harrell at the time.
Right.
He said, "Well, we had one." He said, "We're about to have to hire. He's going to where Georgia Highlands, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Absolutely, I'm interested, but I'd like to, learn more about it." I was super familiar with the league. At Coastal Georgia, we had been junior college until 2 years before that, and then we were NAIA then. But I was super familiar with the league. I was really familiar with Americus and South Georgia Tech. The people here were always fantastic with us on game days and treated us well. And so I told him, sure, I'd love to find out more about it. And he said, "Well, do me a favor. I'm sending you a link. Fill this out as soon as you can." And man, that thing went fast from there.
Coach Payne, you've been here a few years now and kind of getting settled in. I think the community has gotten to know you a little bit, but tell us how you came to be a coach on the women's side.
Yeah, so I finished my career playing. I played Division I basketball at Nichols State University. Played for Coach J.P. Piper and Kevin Johnson, who's Kevin Johnson's now at Tulane right now. And I finished playing. I thought I was going to play professionally overseas. So I was trying to decide if I wanted to get into coaching or just continue my playing career. And my head coach, he asked me to coach with him as a graduate assistant for Nichols on the men's side. And so I was trying to just decide whether I would do that or not. And I guess I took too long in the process. He got his graduate assistant. And when I called him, he said, "Look, I just gave it to someone else." But he said, "Look, the head coach, women's basketball coach across the way on the women's side has just fired everyone. So
wow,
yeah, so she's getting a new start with everybody. And, I would love to take you over there and see if you can apply and see about getting a gig over there." So I went and we hit it off, and I got accepted into a graduate assistant on the women's side, and man, I just fell in love with it, and you couldn't pull me away from it after that. I didn't want to go back on the men's side. I wanted to continue my career on the women's side, and I shot up thanks to to great mentors and a great boss at the time, and God, of course, first and foremost, shot up the ranks. You would think rather quickly, but just really blessed to be able to coach women, man. Just these young women, as Coach Frey just alluded, man. It's hard to explain. It's just amazing, just how willing to learn. They're willing to learn is just incredible, and it's just something that, and also their passion. Like they really have a passion for the game. If you can get over the speed and athleticism of the men and just really hone in on the skill and the artwork of basketball, you will really appreciate the women's game. Because I tell people a lot that these young women, I know Coach Frey's coached some, I have some right now, he has some right now. They are more skilled than some guys that even I played with.
Absolutely.
So the women's game has continued to grow, as you can see all across the country. But man, as he just said, I just couldn't agree with that anymore. Just really, really blessed to be able to coach women.
Well, both of you guys have had a lot of success this year so far. And Coach Frey, let's start with you. I know you've made several appearances. Your teams have made several appearances at the national tournament. And for the first time, I think, in school history this year, your team is currently ranked number 1 in the country in the junior college ranks. And that's got to be a big moment for you, for the school, and especially those young ladies that play for you.
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's big for our school. You know, a lot of folks didn't know who South Georgia Tech was. You know, we're kind of tucked away here in rural Georgia. So you got to look for us to find us. So I feel like it's a really neat. I'm more happy about it for my president than I am for me. You know, as a coach, and I know Coach Payne will attest to this, I'm worried about the next one because that could be the one that knocks us out of number one. Right. I'm not worried about the 22 we've had so far. I'm worried about the next one because that's the biggest one. And so, you know, I try to take it all with a grain of salt. Complacency is a killer. And as soon as you become satisfied with where you are, you're not staying there long. And I don't care what you do or what profession you're in or what sport you play. The minute you get complacent and you're okay with where you are, you're not going to be there long. And so, you know, I'm thankful that the country, that our committees, you know, put us here. I think we've played a pretty good schedule in the non-conference and beat some top 20 teams that enable us to get here. You know, we lost our first game of the year and then I think won 22 since. But again, the next one's the most important one. I'm very thankful that we've been able to build it to a point that this is where we are. But now it gets even harder. You got to sustain once you get here. So
absolutely. Yeah. Well, and you travel 2.5 miles down the road and you wind up at the Storm Dome on the campus of Georgia Southwestern. And Coach Payne, going into this week, your team ranked number 1 in the Southeast in NCAA Division II. I think they were number 8 nationally, if I'm correct on that. But got to be a big moment for you. I can look 2 years down the road last year when you got here, and it certainly wasn't the case.
Yeah. I mean, just when I came here, you know, we heard all the talks about, Coach, you're not going to win many games, and if any, for at that matter, and then to get to where we are now, you know, and like Coach Frey said, we talked on the phone before about complacency and self-satisfaction, and you know, we're definitely not doing that. We want to continue to, you know, just improve this program, continue to show, you know, what we have in Southwest Georgia here is something special, and, you know, just working hard.
Absolutely. And any good coach would tell you it's their players. It's not the coaches. I know you try to be humble there. And let's talk about some of those young ladies that are on each of your rosters. Coach Frey, I got a chance to go out to your place during your tournament during the New Year holiday and got to see people like Alexia. You're going to have to help me out here. Is it DeZico?
Yeah, that's it.
Alexia DeZico. She's a 5'11" forward, I think from Switzerland. Is that right? And then, of course, Fana Gassama, the 6'1" center from Spain. I know as far as a points leader, both of those young ladies are points leaders in your conference. But talk a little bit about your roster and those young ladies that make up the Lady Jets.
We've got a pretty vast international flavor about us, you know, and that kind of started a few years back. And, you know, we've got 11 international players. We're recruiting a little more domestic this year, but it's still going to be a pretty good mix. DeZico was a pretty highly recruited young lady out of high school. You know, with all these young ladies came about in the COVID era. And so it was so different recruiting. You know, it was done online and emails and Zooms and all the other things. And so, you know, you kind of had to get them to feel good about you and your program, you know, virtually. And so it's hard sometimes to build relationships like that. And I think Coach Payne will tell you, this is all about relationships, 100%. And so, you know, but Lex is a young lady who was highly recruited. The process got late for her. She has some academic stuff that it's just weird in Switzerland how their academic calendar works. And so actually got an assist from Virginia Tech with her to get her here. And but I developed a pretty good relationship with her the summer before she came. She's a highly recruited kid now. She's got a lot of schools calling her. Mississippi State called me about her the other day. Syracuse called me about it the other day. Do I think she can play at that level? I don't know. I don't coach at that level. And that's what I tell them. They need to come evaluate it and tell me. So I think she's a pretty, you know, she's explosive with the ball. She can shoot at some. Super nice kid, almost too nice. but a really good player. And then Gasama's a 6'1", like you said, center. She signed with Cincinnati in the early signing period. Our point guard, Luz Rosen, committed to New Mexico State yesterday. And so there's 5 or 6 others, or total 7 maybe, that are getting Division I interest and have gotten offers. And I think Zico's going to wait till after the process, but I think it's important that we're sophomore laden. We've got 9 sophomores, and it's important to us that those sophomores bring our 4 freshman young ladies along, so they'll be able to accept that leadership role next year, and we can continue to build it. But this year's roster is pretty interesting. They were all freshmen last year when we won 27 games, so they know how to win, but they don't know how to win the big ones. So now we've got to win those. So, but it's pretty cool to coach these kids. They're fun. They have a good time at practice. They handle my shenanigans. I'm not always the easiest on them, and I tell them that when I recruit them. If you're going to play here, then I'm going to coach you hard. And if I stop coaching you hard, then you're probably not going to be here long, because I don't see a future for you. So they understand that that's my job, and it's my heart for them. I don't want them to think life is easy. I think when you take the easy road with things, sometimes when you get to the real world, it becomes a mess on you. So they tolerate me. We have a good time, and then we hopefully get them a good education and move them on.
Yeah, Coach Payne, every time I go to the Storm Dome and watch your kids, boy, it's like a defensive clinic with them. They really fly to the ball. They do a lot of trapping and things like that. They put a lot of pressure on you, cut off passing lanes really well, and you've got some special young ladies as well. I know you've got a Sam Houston State transfer and the Williams kid that's done really well, and of course Kayla Langley, I think she's a JUCO transfer from down in Florida. But talk to us about your roster that's done so well.
Yeah, I mean, we have a number of great players. Ava Jones from Louisiana, Joe Williams from Louisiana. From where I'm from, I got to see both of those kids when I was at Division I Nicholls State, and got to recruit them and watch them pretty much from when they were in middle school to come up. So I was really, really just blessed and fortunate now that I have a head coaching job, and that, to bring them along with me, and to share with them my vision. And, they bought in, and as well as the other ones, Kayla Langley as well. Got a gift from Coach Hannah Hayton at Moberly. Again, she understands. She was in the same league with me in the Southland Conference, and she knew what I was about, and again, trusted one of her players. And, Coach Frey just talked about relationships, and we're starting to talk about it already. It's all about relationships, not only with the players, but with other coaches. And, they help you out, and they see your vision as well. And, same with Coach Frey. He helped me out with, we got this thing started with Alyssa Nieves, too, last year, as well. So, but we have some great players on our roster. Jacqueline LeVay as well, Sam Houston transfer. I was in that league, and, they were able to, I got some help again from Coach Justice at Sam Houston, and was able to bring some really good players into the fold. And the thing is that they're all believing in, what we're building and what we have built. And they're really just working hard. They're just like, you can ask them, if I ask them, cliche to just run through this brick wall right now, they'll just go do it and not ask any questions, and defensively, that's been our stamp. We're going to guard. I said that from when I came in. We're really putting the emphasis on defense, and it's one of the reasons why we're at where we're at and one of the top defensive teams in the country.
Coach, you mentioned something in that statement that I think is really a positive in our area. I know a couple of times that I've been out at South Georgia Tech watching Frey's group play. You've come in and sat with me. You're there watching them. Vice versa, several times I've been at the Storm Dome, and Coach Frey and Coach Ballauer and those guys come over. It looks like you guys have built a real friendship.
Absolutely. When I first came in, and I tell this to Coach Frey all the time, and he's just a legend, and I have so much respect for him and for what he's done with that program. And it was just inspiring for me just getting the job, my first head coaching opportunity here at Georgia Southwestern. But look down the road, and you can have that inspiration right there and see what you can do in Southwest Georgia with the program, And I tell him that all the time. I appreciate our friendship. I love to watch his club play. I love to watch him coach. He's an amazing coach. And again, it was just a blessing, man.
Coach Frey, you want to chime in on that?
No, Coach is he's exactly right. I live about 800 yards from the Storm Dome, so if we're not playing and they're playing, I'm going to be there. And I just enjoy good college basketball. And Coach hit the nail on the head. Man, his kids, since he's been here, those kids play so hard. And I tell mine all the time, if we'll just play harder than the other team, we'll win half of our.
Yeah.
But just play hard. And, man, his teams play so hard. And the first time I ever met Coach was at a Chinese restaurant. I'll never forget it. And it has. We text and we talk all the time, and it's a great relationship. And it's exciting to have two programs in a town like ours that's so small that are really doing well at their own respective levels and are getting notoriety for America's Georgia. And so it's incredible. And my relationship with Coach, I appreciate it so much. And he called me a legend. I laugh every time I hear that mess. But like we said, it's about players, and we've been fortunate to have good players. But I love going to. I sit in the same seat in the Storm Dome. I sit across from Coach on the corner over there where I can watch him on the sideline and watch him get after it. And I love to watch coaches. I love to watch coaches coach. And so if I could sit at the scores table, I would, because I like to hear what's going on. I like to get involved and see it. But I got a great vantage point when I go in the Storm Dome, and I love going there and watch games for sure.
Hey, I think one of the reasons that you like to watch coaches is because of the competition level you guys are playing, especially once you get into conference play. Let's switch gears and kind of go toward the conference. Frey, you guys are in the GCAA. Talk a little bit about the teams that right now on your side are the teams that we've got to look out for.
Well, our league is Georgia. So, Georgia Highlands was runner-up in the country last year, lost the national championship game, had an incredible year. This year, Theo Howard over at East Georgia has got a really good club. Some of the best guards collectively I've ever seen in our league. Just athletic and just really come at you in waves and can score. And, we play them this coming Saturday there. It's going to be a huge test for our young folks. We're probably not playing the best basketball of the year right now. Interested to see how our kids handle this challenge, because it's going to be big. East Georgia's got a really good team this year. Georgia Highlands started off with probably, they lost all their kids last year and had to start from scratch and probably played, I would venture to say, the toughest schedule in the country the first month and a half of the season. But I think that's paying off for him now. I think he's won 4 or 5 games in a row. So including a win over East Georgia last Saturday in Rome. I think the three of us are probably the top 3 teams in the league. It's going to be who wins down the stretch to determine who's where. And I think Albany Tech is considerably better than they have been. On any given day, they can beat you. I think our league as a whole has been top heavy for a long time. Probably like that again a little bit. But East Georgia and Georgia Highlands are 2 really talented teams that are going to be tough for us down the stretch. And
then you slide over to the Storm Dome, and Coach Payne, you're in the Peach Belt. The Peach Belt Conference is probably the SEC of Division II. And if you follow women's basketball at all, you know that the University of North Georgia out of the Peach Belt is kind of a perennial power, a team which you beat 54-52 in overtime, I think, by the way, earlier in the year. But talk about the Peach Belt this year, and now that you're the team with the target on your back, who are those teams that'll be coming after you?
Yeah, you just said it. North Georgia, again, was in a Final Four last year. Returned some key players. They lost a good bit, but Coach Buffy does a great job. Another great coach, and she's got them back in the top 25. Columbus is really, really talented ball club who we had a game against last night, 85-80. It was a shootout last night, and they just, as good as a defensive group as we are, that's how talented his group is. They put you in some positions. Every 1 through 5, you're going to have to be able to guard. And they are really, really good. And Young Harris is coming up. And who else do we have? Lander is really good. There's no easy games in the Peach Belt. I could name all the teams right now. Augusta's playing really well. They really have just a number of teams. There's no easy games for us right now. You look from 1 to 10, like you can lose to the team that's at the bottom. Anything can happen. These teams have all great coaches, and they all have some really, really good players. Like you just said, feel like the SEC of Division II. Which was really, really important when we went out to Vegas and got those 2 wins against the Lone Star Conference. We just wanted to show that, hey, not only that we are one of the top teams in the country, but we play in the best conference in the country.
Right. And let's switch gears a little bit now as we wrap this thing up and go toward recruiting. And we'll start with you, Coach Payne, since we've let Coach Frey answer the first question every time. But you two guys have been here a little while now. Americus, Southwest Georgia. When you're bringing somebody in, and Coach Payne, as I was in your gym yesterday, I saw you had several recruits in town looking at Georgia Southwestern. But what do you sell about your school? What do you sell about this area that can convince a young lady that's a student athlete to come to your school?
Well, first and foremost, we're going to sell just what we've built here, and then that's built on God, family, education, and basketball. And then the next thing, man, is just this town is just family, man. The same thing I felt when I first touched campus, when we drove down to Americus. My God, like, it's just a family atmosphere. And you see it from our relationship with Coach Frey at South Georgia Tech, Tim, our relationship with you, and just everybody just across just our small community, man. Everyone is just, man, it's been so incredible to my family and I. I would be remiss to not talk about my wife and my kids in the recruiting process, because they are extremely important, as well as they are in the mix with our team as well. We're doing different things for them. And also I have 2 great assistants, Coach Nick Graham and Coach Ty Williams, who've also done a lot for us in recruiting. But I mean, about the area, it's just the family atmosphere, man. You just feel love, man. And that's what this program is founded upon, God and love.
Coach Frey, similar thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I try to tell our recruits, look, if you think rural, then go farther, because that's where our campus is. Like,
right.
Like we're rural now. And so the good thing is it's Americus, and we can be downtown in 5 minutes, but we're also rural. And so, you're going to live, away from the city and away from town. And you got to specifically, for me, be coming here for a purpose. You want to get yourself recruited at a higher level, or you're academically, you need some help and you want to get, grounded. Most of the time it's the recruiting aspect. Most of our young ladies are good academically. So, I sell our culture, on campus. It starts with our president, Dr. Watford. That guy is so supportive of us. He's at all our games. Unless he's sick or got a meeting, he's here. He's at most of our road games. It's the culture that he has built here that we have piggybacked off of to try to build this program. And people often ask me about the international, why so many internationals, or how do you get them? Well, if you get a few and they have success and move on, that breeds success, and that breeds those other internationals going, okay, I saw what they did. They go through and look at these rosters and go, oh, they got internationals. I wonder if they're, and so it kind of, it breeds success for itself. And I'll use this for not just internationals. Rika Jackson, who's one of my assistants now, played for me, then went to Texas Tech and did a grad year at Utah. So she played P5 for 3 years after. And she told me one day about 2 or 3 months ago, and this is very humbling for me. She said, Coach, if I could have stayed here after playing, the whole cost of attendance, $7,500 a year at Tech, and all this money they get and all the other stuff they get. She said, Coach, and I'm being as honest as I can be, if I could have stayed here for 4 years and got a degree, I would have stayed here and played here.
Yeah.
It's about culture to me. And it's about those relationships we talked about, players, our families, our community. It's all about the relationships. And so I thought that was very humbling, because she's made a bunch of money playing basketball in college. But she would have given it up to stay here for 4 years. to me, that's pretty humbling. And that's the experience we want these young ladies to have.
Well, guys, let's wrap this up by talking quickly about how folks can find you. Let's talk about when you're going to play over the next couple of weeks. And you talked about legend earlier in the broadcast, Coach Payne, and I think part of that has to do with age. You know, I'm not going to say his age, but I know his age, and I know, Coach Payne, you're a lot younger than that. But by that, what I want to bring out is the fact that your families are in different situations. Mm-hmm. I know Frey's got grown children, where Coach Payne, your children are young, but tell folks how they can find you, whether you're on Twitter or whether they need to email you or all that, and how they come watch you.
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all under the same thing, either Coach Payne, GSW, or Justin Payne. So you just look it up. I think you'll be able to find me. It'll have the Coach Payne and then the _ GSW. And then, we play this Saturday against a great young Harris team. We got a great ball club Saturday at 5:30. It's at night. So come on down to the Storm Dome and come support and watch some great basketball. Coach
Frey, are you on any social media?
I am, but I'm glad you're talking about that age thing, because I don't know what my call things are. But I can tell you this: I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and if you look up SGTC Jets, our college, I'm listed under that. So you can click on my name. It's Frey is in there somewhere, and you can click on that and get to me. That's that age thing you were talking about. I don't ever look at that stuff. I go on and look at those two sites, but I don't pay much attention to what's under my name. And somebody set it up for me here. I don't even know. So, but we play Saturday on the road. We've been on the road for most of January. We've had one home game in January. We're not back home again until February 1st. But that bodes well for February. I think we got 5 out of 6 at home in February. So, hoping to keeping it moving forward. Trying to get this energy level up again. It's hard to stay there all year. It's a long. The one thing I tell people all the time: basketball is the only two semester sport in college. Nobody else is a 2-semester sport. It's hard to get young people to stay motivated and excited for 6 months at the level they have to be at to be good. So hopefully we can keep it moving, us and Coach Payne, and we'll see each other a bunch in our gyms and just kind of enjoy the ride together.
So folks, go out to the hangar and watch the Lady Jets. Stop by the Storm Dome and catch Coach Payne and the Lady Hurricanes. You guys, this is the first of what we hope will be many broadcasts. I wanted to have you on, number one, because of the success that you're having right now, but also because of the friendship that we share here in Americus, and just want to thank you guys for being a part of this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. We appreciate you.